Testing.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council chambers.
All those who are here today in person and those who are listening at home. We have some presenters today, and we have a full agenda. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. The time is 9 a.m. We're going to make it a little bit of adjustments to some of the appearance to be cognizant of other people's time. So we'll turn the agenda over to our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. We're going to move item number 3 up to the top. Review and approve the real estate license agreement with United States Steel Corporation for the Quad Cities ATV Trail.
And we have two individuals here representing the Quad Cities ATV. And if you just please, we know you, but please state your name for the record and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting. Did you turn the light on the green? Beautiful. Mr. Dennis Hendricks and Mr. Dave Dinko.
Correct.
Thank you.
So we want to get a trail out of Virginia to the north, and there's several landowners, U.S. Steel being the largest one, and we've worked with them for many years, and finally 2 weeks ago, we got approval for them, and I think they've sent a draft agreement that has to be executed by the council and by the U.S. Steel yet, but they have signed off on it. So I'm going to let Dave talk about the importance of that trail and what it would mean to the city here.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Dinko?
I guess first off, we're here to look for your sponsorship for the trail because we need a sponsor, of course, which we had the city sponsor other trails going towards the bridge and everything. So like Dennis said, we've been working on this 5 years. Pretty much U.S. Steel told us not long ago that we were never going to get a lease through there. And for some reason, a couple weeks ago, they said, we're going to execute a lease for you guys for 5 years. We need sponsorship. So we're looking to the city of Virginia for that sponsorship. The importance of this trail is anything south from the Laurentian Divide into Virginia, there's no way to get into Virginia. So this is our pretty much final connection we need for the ATV routes coming into Virginia, which will get us north. I mean, we can get over the bridge now, we can get east, south. So I guess this is a very important connection.
Well, thank you for coming, Mr. Dinko and Mr. Hendricks. Reviewing the lease from my perspective, we'll go around the council and ask for any clarification, maybe from if legal has some comments to make. But it seems it's similar to the agreements we have with RGGS for our snowmobile and ATV trails elsewhere too. So from my perspective personally, if there's I don't know if there's a tax requirement like RGHS has, if there's improvements that have to be the trail, if there's insurance that has to be purchased with respect to what's in this contract, who pays for that insurance? I know sometimes the bill comes to us and then we forward it to the sponsor of that specific ATV or snowmobile road, and they take care of it. But I think RGS wanted the city of Virginia to be the conduit for that. And I see something similar to that in this agreement as well. So those are my comments. I'm fully supportive of a sponsorship. This is a very important cog that we've had to deal with, you have to deal with, and it clears some space for ATV, just the beginning of the trail system and improving of it. So I'm completely supportive of that. Anyone? Councilor Motley?
On behalf of all ATVers trying to get out of Virginia going north, I am very excited to hear this. Thank you guys for putting in the work. As we all know, ATVs will bring in money into the city. They'll be spending, eating, drinking, hopefully staying in the city, especially if we get that hotel rolling. So thank you. I will also be supporting this. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Motley. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. How much of the trail itself is within the city limits of Virginia?
I guess I don't know where the city limits end, but it starts at Joy Global and ends at Laurentian Divide.
If the map that's in our packet, it's black and white, so it's hard to tell exactly. I just want to be cognizant of what we do have control over and the ability to help with, and if there's other stuff that other entities, mainly naming Mountain Iron on the other side of the highway. So I just want to make sure that we're covering all those bases so this can move forward. Earlier, you were mentioning it maybe May, so that would be my question.
Well, basis is, the city doesn't have any lease agreements with with the ATV club. Our agreements are with Mintac, the Washkeys. So once those lease agreements are done, our club or the city of Virginia will carry the trail insurance on it. And we as a club, as a nonprofit, we need a sponsor, either the city of Virginia or St. Louis County or whoever it may be. But this being connecting the city of Virginia, and we've been discussing this for years and years, we came forth with the idea that the city of Virginia would be the good sponsor for this. It would be the fit.
And I definitely appreciate that and agree with that. I want to just make sure that we don't go full steam and then all of a sudden there's a roadblock that we didn't see because of the actual ownership of that. So as long as that's taken care of, and I guess I would want to know what the cost is if there was under the city, especially now when that seems to be the topic of the month, is how much money do we not have in a year and a half. So I want to make sure that whatever we're doing is sustainable for us, because what I'd hate to have happen is us do budget cuts and that be one of them, and now you guys are left out in the cold. So I want to make sure that we're budgeting and planning accordingly as we move forward.
Right, so the only stipulation here may be that Mintac may want the city of Virginia to carry the trail insurance on this. If that's the case, the club also carries trail insurance on 26 miles of trail or less right now. But that is something that we can reimburse the city for. So this is zero cost to the city. All it is economic development, as far as I'm concerned, to bring people into the city and spend money. So I've been a resident here for 55 years, a business owner, and I know the importance of getting people here for other people to make money.
Absolutely, and the ability to go through town instead of coming into town and turning around is
Yes.
key too. So I just don't want any surprises moving forward so that it doesn't get delayed at all. So I'll be supporting
cut
this
and dry.
moving forward. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify some of that, if we carry the insurance, you reimburse us. So I'm going to move for comment from our city attorney, Mr. Brian Lindsay. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I have reviewed the agreement that's contained within the council packet. I'll note a couple of things. Number one, this contract or this lease agreement is markedly different from a lot of other similar type of agreements that I have reviewed. And specifically, this doesn't talk about the agreement or the relationship in terms of sponsorship. This is a lease directly between United Steel Corporation and the city of Virginia. In many other contracts of similar nature that I review, they'll reference both the club and the city. There's a value to including the city in one of these agreements or in a relationship like this. And that's because if you include the city as a sponsor or as a primary participant in the lease, the mining companies can take advantage of the recreational trail immunities that cities enjoy by statute. It's an important thing. What I would, I'm not necessarily saying that that there's anything wrong with this agreement, but what we're definitely going to want to do as a city is to backfill this agreement with a separate agreement directly with the ATV club, because there's certain things, certain requirements and general responsibilities with an agreement or with this type of a scenario that the city should watch out for. Number one, whenever you have a trail agreement, a license for a trail in place, part of what's going to need to happen is that the trails are going to need to be inspected and maintained, and that's something that the ATV club, I suspect, is particularly good at doing, and the city may not be so good at doing with the resources that we have and the budgeting that we've done. But the importance of doing that type of work on the trails is that from a liability standpoint, if anything were to happen on the trails, it's very important for us to be able to say, no, we understand that the ATV club has been out maintaining, they travel through, they watch for dangerous conditions, which are really the only one of the primary only ways that the city could kind of get in any trouble with this. And so it gives an extra layer of protection. You combine that with the recreational trail immunities and the ability or the willingness of the club to carry some trail insurance on it. And then we've got a pretty safe legal position to operate the trails. But that would be my recommendation. There are some terms within this contract that I don't love, but my experience has been with a recreational trail or an ATV trail and a mining company, our ability to go back and renegotiate this with them is going to be fairly low. So my recommendation as an alternative would be to backfill this to try and clarify the roles and responsibilities between the city and the ATV club. And that backfilled agreement, in my experience, also creates some ability for the ATV club to go out and obtain some additional funding from alternative sources that may not necessarily, and you guys may be taking advantage of it already, but it may create some additional avenues for funding and give you a built-in fiscal agent for some of those government funds that may become available. So those are my comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So Brian, would that contract between the city and the club happen first?
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we'd want to do it at about the same time, but I mean, the nice part is that backfill agreement isn't an overly complicated agreement. It basically just kind of clarifies the relationship. It typically is something that's fairly easy to get put in place.
And then I just want to clarify, when we're talking sponsorship, it's not necessarily sponsorship, is the technical term fiscal agent? Is that the technical term?
yes.
Okay, thank you for that.
I know the DNR world, like he was alluding to in the DNR grants, they call it sponsorship, and they require a city to be the fiscal agent or a sponsor, was what they call it. So it's the same thing, it's just it's a different term, yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, I was going to move to direct staff to create that agreement with the club so that we can get going forward on the second agreement as well.
Okay, thank you. A motion by Councilor Johnson to direct staff to amend the agreement and present it to us moving forward as what would you call it? Supplemental agreement. The supplemental agreement.
Yeah, not to amend this agreement, it's to create a new agreement between the city and the club.
Okay, very good. Motion by Councilor Johnson, is there support?
Support for
By
discussion.
Councilor Beyondich. Is further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. Britt, do you remember several years back when Mr. Detloff came? Is this area part of what he was talking about? Or was that a whole different, that's more of a snowmobile?
Correct, and that was a little bit farther south from there.
That's the south, okay. I was just wondering if it tied in at all. Thank you.
So the motion on the floor and support, and looks like we're going to take a vote without any further comments, is to take this agreement, incorporate the language that was articulated by our city attorney, make this a new agreement, and present that for, is that correct?
No, Mayor, that is not
okay.
my motion.
Okay,
My
I'm sorry.
motion is to direct staff to create an agreement between the ATV and the city and just leave it at that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. So that has been moved and supported.
And Mayor, I know it's outside the discussion for this motion, but I just wanted to add to this discussion that I think if the council was interested, you probably could move this to the regular meeting contingent upon finalization of that secondary agreement, because I think both could be ready by the next meeting.
And that would be an addendum to your motion as well, Councilor Johnson, and your support as well. Additional discussion, Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. And when we talked about the insurance, that it would come to the city and then it would be deferred back to the club, can that be in this motion? That I just feel with all the budget things going on that we need to make that very clear, that the city would not be held responsible for the insurance. Is that possible?
I believe that is the case. Ryan, could you clarify, please?
Yep, and the insurance piece would become a part of that secondary, that supplemental agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Hendricks?
There's going to be other agreements, so as you draft this, Can this be kind of a blanket agreement so it would cover any future agreements as well?
Well, this agreement is for the trail that's presented right now. If there's any additional trail systems that it would have to be separated, we can't be all inclusive. Is that correct, Mr. Lindsay?
It is, Mayor. One option that we may have is we could create what essentially would be a master agreement that governs the relationship between the city and the club, and we would have an addendum of specific trail sections that would cover, where it would be understood by the club that, assuming that conditions were equivalent and that the concerns were equivalent between different trail sections that may be acquired, we could just simply amend the addendum to include additional trail sections with the understanding that the master agreement terms would then apply to each different trail section.
That would work out very well, I think,
very
going
good.
forward here.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Dinko?
I think just to ease everybody's minds on the maintenance and whatever goes on these trails, as of now, like the trail going towards the bridge, the club has taken it upon themselves to maintain that trail. And then the trail past that, we also have an agreement with the Masabi Trail, which if we don't maintain that, we lose our lease agreement. But the process is to get these trails on the ground. Once the trails are on the ground, which by November, we're going to put them into a grant and aid program. So we will get maintenance money for that. And if you're wondering how we get money, that's how we will get money to maintain that. Also, our club has $500,000 sitting in the IRRB fund, which as long as we have matching funds, will improve that trail. Just if you're wondering how we're going to do this and what the maintenance schedule is and stuff on these trails, that's how it will work.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
And I want to thank you both for all that you do. My husband does use the trails quite a bit, so he carries his little chainsaw in case there's maintenance along the way, but I know it will be welcome for the city of Virginia to have people passing through and hopefully stopping in. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Would you please read back the motion, please, Pam, just to make sure we have it correct?
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Beyondich, to direct staff to create a supplemental agreement between the city and the ATV Club and to move the real estate license agreement to the regular council meeting for approval.
Is that the motion? And that's the support. Okay, motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We'll hopefully have
Very
something,
much.
hopefully have something ready by the end of, by next Tuesday.
Excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry,
I
yes.
will move to approve the lease with U.S. Steel contingent upon the first agreement being.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson moves to approve the lease agreement from U.S. Steel. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Can I say one other thing?
You sure may.
On Friday, we had one of the biggest rides coming into the city of Virginia. So thank you guys for making this happen, and ATV Minnesota, so we appreciate it.
Well, stay long, come in early, stay long, and come back often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go back up to item number 1, which is Matt Reed from SCH, our city engineer of record. And the first item is to review and approve the professional services agreement for expansion of the 2024 Street and Alley Infrastructure Improvement Project.
Matt Reed, our engineer of record from SCH, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Yeah, the first item that I've got on the agenda is, as Britt said, this is an amendment, actually. It's a separate agreement, but it's an amendment to our original contract for the additional work that we're doing that we added after the public hearing last week for the alley project. And it includes a lot of this work's already done, actually. The feasibility study, we redid that, did a second public hearing, and have already done a lot of the field work. So it's just for the work that we have to do to add those into the project. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. This is for item number B, 1B. The sewer backup, 505.
Oh, it's 1A.
1A?
Yep.
I'm sorry, 1A, excuse me, thank you.
I will move the then agreement.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the agreement. Is there support? Is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, is this $23,000 on top of the cost for the actual project itself?
Oh, it's included in the project
It
cost.
was included in our, and can you refresh our memory? Was it 7.8 million or was it 7.8 million?
That's included in that, yep.
Okay, so that was included in there, and what you're just you're breaking it down and then just submitting an invoice basically for this? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Second item Matt's bringing forward is the claim for the sewer backup at 505 3rd Avenue North that happened during the 2021 street reconstruction project.
So, Matt, is there an additional cost here associated with this backup as a result of the reconstruction project?
Maybe I'll start, if it's okay, I'll give you a little bit
Yeah,
of
please do.
background on
Thank
what
you.
happened. So this was back in 2020, I think it was last summer, actually. The contractor was reconstructing the sanitary sewer line on Third Avenue. They were, the main that goes along Third Avenue, they found the service to this particular residence. They hooked it back up and everything was flowing fine. There was a stub that they were replacing off into the alley that is also adjacent to this property. They found a second sanitary sewer service, which they then were a little bit confused because they already had the one and reconnected that had everything flowing. So they did a bunch of due diligence, did some testing. They flushed the toilets and tried to figure out if that service was still live. And at the time, they determined that they didn't think it was. Unfortunately, it was, and they found out the hard way. So, long and the short of it, there was a claim filed. It was filed through the city. It was filed through the contractor, actually, and the city's insurance adjuster reviewed it and denied it and forwarded it on to the contractor's insurance. They have reviewed it. They have offered the property owner a settlement, which is what was the information's included in that letter from Casper Construction. It wasn't for the full amount of the claim, but it was for a portion that their claims adjuster felt was appropriate, right, wrong, or indifferent. That was the number they came up with. So right now, there's about a $5,000 discrepancy. There's a $5,000 amount that technically isn't covered. The property owner, the contractor's been trying to get a hold of the property owner for several months. She is not, she said she'd think about it. They haven't been able to get a response from her. So the reason that we're bringing it forward today is we've been trying to get the claim resolved. We're at the point of holding a public hearing next Monday for this project, trying to get the project closed out, and they have not been able to resolve the claim with the property owner. So as a means of trying to move the project ahead and close it out, we've proposed this as a resolution for the council to consider, in that they will hold the claim open for a year, the warranty period of the project, basically. If they can resolve it within that time for that amount, they're willing to do that. Their claims adjuster was gonna close that claim out here shortly, but they agreed to hold it open for a year. If they can't within a year, then they're gonna close it and move on. The bigger issue, I think, is the additional amount that's remaining, the $5,000 that's not covered. Whether it's justified or not is not for me to say. But if for some reason they came back, the property owner came back and said, we don't agree with the settlement or the claim amount, then there's still $5,000 sitting out there. I don't know where that would go, because the city's insurance adjuster already denied it. So I don't honestly know where that would end up going. I would imagine I could defer it to the city attorney. He might have some thoughts on it. I don't know. But anyway, long and the short of it, what we're trying to do here is get this project to a point where we can close it out and finalize it, so we have all the final costs. And so this is the resolution that the contractor put forward to see if we could resolve it and move on. So,
Okay, I have one question, then we'll go from left to right. Thank you. So my only question is, I know we're not negotiating this, so has the homeowner, the property owner been made whole as a result of this sewer backup?
no, it's $8,000 some dollar, whatever the invoices were that they submitted. The contractor's insurance adjuster said we'll pay whatever that number is, $3,600, which is for a couple of the bills, but not all of them. They deemed that some of what they were asking for was not justifiable. So, and they haven't been paid anything at this point because they made the offer and the property owner has not responded and accepted it or denied it, quite frankly. There's been no resolution.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Matt, for that explanation. I've also been involved with speaking to the property owner. And I guess my feeling is this was no fault of hers at all, what happened. And she couldn't foresee that there were two lines. That was Casper's job. So I don't know, when we turned it in, so just for another clarification, I believe the property owner has paid for all of the invoices. That included all of she has not.
I can't say that for sure. I believe she's paid to have the cleaning's been done. I know that they cleaned the mess up. So I can only assume she paid that. There was an additional amount, and this is where it got a little bit questionable with the insurance. Again, my understanding of this, that she wanted to get something replaced, some tiles replaced or something that,
Asbestos tiles that after the sewer overflowed and she had to be responsible to get that cleaned,
yep,
that it peeled up tile that happened to have asbestos in it. So she had to, I believe she paid to have that tile removed. Now, I don't know if that's been replaced or not, but in my opinion, this is no fault of the homeowners when Casper didn't close up that other line. So I don't know, Brian, legally, how the city could assist in this issue since our city insurance adjuster turned down our claim. But I don't know how this is the property owner's responsibility. Correct me if I'm wrong, Casper was our subcontractor, or were they subcontracting for somebody else?
Casper was the city's
Or
contractor.
the city's contractor. So under that guidance or that contract that we have with them, are they not required by their own insurance and by our own contract with Casper to make whole if they have any issues with any leakage or whatever damage?
Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, that is generally the responsibility. Insurance companies work in mysterious ways. So typically, when something gets to this point, because truly any responsibility that folks, property owners, or anyone may look to the city for here would be created solely by the powers of agency. And any amount that the city would be asked to answer for, obviously, we would turn and make a claim for contribution against the prime contractors because they were the ones that were hands-on and had the control over the things that could have potentially caused the damage. Unfortunately, the way that you get there from where we are today typically involves lawsuits because the insurance companies will come in and they will give their opinion about whether claims are valid. And if a property owner disagrees with the determinations that have been made about the claims or the value of claims, their alternative is to essentially bring a claim against the contractor. And when they bring a claim against the contractor, they would inevitably bring a claim against the city as well. And that's when we would turn and look to the contractor to pay any amount that the city may be responsible for.
I guess my question is, can't the city hold Casper's foot to the fire in terms of the property owner had absolutely nothing to do with this damage that was caused? Nothing.
I mean, the city could issue that as an opinion. But as far as forcing the contractor's insurance company to pay any more, we don't have a practical ability to do that unless we brought a lawsuit. And for better or worse, that's typically what the positions are, is, well, we turn the claim into our insurance company, and this is what they said. And so, perhaps Casper would volunteer to pay the difference between what the insurance paid and the claim, but if they don't, then the mechanism to force that is litigation.
And I guess I would have an issue with then going forward with Casper in the future if this is how they're going to treat our residents when they made a mistake. And it's a very small number, in my opinion, compared to the business that the city does with Casper Construction. So I won't vote in favor to approve this, but thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Before I go to Councilor Johnson, so, I mean, in your opinion, typically, we could send a letter to Casper on behalf of the city and impress upon them the importance of resolving this issue, number one, and then at the same time resubmit a claim to our insurance company. We could do that, could we not?
Correct. And one of the results, the possible results, is that if our insurance company believes that Casper was liable and that potentially through litigation it could end up that the city would be liable, they may agree to pay the claim and then subrogate, and then the insurance company would pursue. Right. It's an unlikely result, but it's possible. But yeah, the city definitely could send a letter to Casper. The other thing is not that I like to talk strategy on the record, but from a general knowledge perspective, the dollar amounts that we're talking about will be paid to the lawyers far before anybody ever sees a courtroom in a claim like this. So there may be a practical issue here as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll hold that in abeyance for a moment. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to clarify a little bit. The work in the home has been done. Do you know what's been done?
I don't know 100% for sure what's been done. I know it's been cleaned, and I believe the tile has been removed. I don't know for sure if they have replaced the tile or not.
How much was this total project off the top of your head, the whole thing we did?
7 million, plus or minus.
So where I'm sitting at is, based on the letter you had, because I see the $5,000 being less of a cost than anything else moving forward, staff time, insurance, lawsuits. My thought is to approve the payment of the $5,000 contingent upon accepting the rest of the insurance and having that communication. And I only say that because, I'd be curious to know, Councilor Paulson, if you had discussion with this person since the companies have tried to reach out, like if there's a disconnect there or what that is, because I want to make sure the communication's happening. If the person's comfortable talking to you, there may need to be another route of trying to figure that out. I can see a person becoming very frustrated with companies and shutting off just as a matter of, I can't deal with this. But if there's a personal relationship, that may be a route that we should be looking into, because if one of us could help a resident navigate that, I think that would be an appropriate step. But I also know that, again, $8,000, and if we know that the sewer's been reconnected and it's been cleaned up, what's the middle ground there with replacing tile? Are we talking about, travertine tiles or hand, so that's why I question the amount. That's why I'm not ready to actually make the payment, because I want to make sure that, because usually when there's something like that, people have a tendency to use that opportunity in general to upgrade or to make the whole what was wrong, and they use the opportunity to make it better overall. So I guess I'd want a little bit more conversation with the property owner and see exactly what portion we would be responsible for, as opposed to what would be extra that they're doing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. by sending a letter to Casper requesting they make the homeowner whole, just makes sense moving forward. So that opens up the communication piece, because if they have not been able to hold the homeowner and that homeowner's likely thinking about it or whatever the case may be, I think it's his responsibility to push the envelope to the point where there is some forced communication there, and not forced, but in communication with Casper to try to make him whole. So, Councilor Beyondich.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. So, I mean, that's what I'd like to see. Councilor Paulson?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Councilor Paulson makes the motion to send a letter to Casper Construction requesting that they make the homeowner whole as a result of a claim regarding the sewer backup at 505 3rd Avenue North. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I'm sorry, Councilor Johnson.
It's after the vote.
Okay, motion carried. Councilor Johnson.
I would make a motion to direct staff to reach out to this homeowner from the other end and offer to help facilitate navigating the companies.
A motion by Councilor Johnson to, for the city to reach out to the homeowner and move a communication forward and try to resolve this with them. Is that kind of the motion? Is there support for that? Is there support? Is there support? A motion fails, lack of support. Thank you. Okay, anything else on item 1B? Okay, thank you.
Item 1C is change order number 5 for the 2021 street reconstruction project.
What is it, change order you said? Number 5, which is no cost. Okay, thank you.
Yep. If I may, it's actually change order number 6, but that's semantics. But this is a no-cost change order. It's just, it's paperwork. Adjusting completion dates is all it boils down to. So there's no cost implications on this one.
Moved to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor, who was it? Councilor Beyondich? Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
And the final one for Matt is review and approve the bids for the Silver Lake Phase 2B floating dock project, which is LCCMR funded.
I will move the completion of the project.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the completion of the project. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Further discussion? One question, this is fully funded, correct?
Excuse me, yes, correct.
Thank you very much. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Matt, before you walk away, they plan to do that in the winter, correct? When that water's frozen, or?
Not sure yet. We'll see. Well, it'll officially get awarded next Tuesday, but we'll be in contact with the contractor now, and we'll probably, depending on what they want to do, get something set up. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some work done this winter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yep. Appreciate it very much.
Item number 2 is Bill Hofdahl from the Holy Spirit Church requesting to waive the permit fee for renovation for the new Marquette School.
Thank you. Would you just please state your record, sir, and welcome to the committee home meeting.
Here, don't I? My name is Bill Hofdahl, and I'm from the Holy Spirit Church. And I'm here to discuss this waiver of the permit fees for the Catholic school that is being built or renovated in the Blue Cross Blue Shield building. I submitted this letter on Tuesday morning, and then I saw the newspaper on Wednesday night. So I kind of know that I've got one strike against me, but I'm still going to swing the bat. The Marquette School has served the community for 100-plus years, and the building that it's in now is in pretty sad shape and doesn't quite work real well with the 200-some students we have in there. And so we, this past March, purchased the Blue Cross Blue Shield building for $2.9 million, and then we are going to be renovating it. We've been working on the project, plans to renovate it. We're very, very close to that. Then the renovation is $2 million. I'm using rough numbers here because we're close, but we're not final on the numbers. And so consequently, since the permit fees are based on the contract amount, we don't have exact numbers there too. But the permit costs are around $10,000 total. And the piece that the city of Virginia collects for their, that doesn't pass through to the state and other entities, is $5,500. And I'm asking that those fees be waived.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Huftel. Any comments from the council? Councilor Motley?
Bill, I just want to say thank you for coming to the council with your request. But in light of things happening right now with the city and the budget, I at this time can't support it. But thank you for coming. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. Councilor Beyondich?
And I echo, I know we've done things in the past, but in light of what is happening and with our budget, I just I can't support it. But I thank you for coming forward and all the work you're doing.
I just want you to know that I totally understand, so.
Thank you, Mr. Huftel. So, any other council? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks so much, Mr. Hoffman, for coming. And I think if this would have been any other year, I think, I would love to say yes. I'm so excited about the project. I'm so excited about the school. And I wish you all the most amazing success going forward. But I know you understand where we're at. It's a tough situation this year. But I'm really excited for the project going forward. So thank you so much for being here.
And I would, Councilor Johnson.
I was just going to say, is just as a matter of record, I will move to receive and file the request to be possibly looked at in the future.
Okay, Councilor Johnson makes a motion to receive and file the request from the Holy Spirit Church. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. We can have discussion on that, can we not? Further discussion. I just want to say that, just to be complete transparent, that I'm a member of this church and been intricately involved in the process moving forward. And just like every other project in the city of Virginia, there's no more importance than economic development or education for our children, all those kind of things. And I know in the past we have approved fees, but just for the record, and I know we'll probably get calls and comments about that. So for the record, we did waive the permit fees for range traditional housing, and that was in about $8,000 worth of fees, a little bit more than $8,000 worth of fees. So when we do that, these other entities, like the Holy Spirit Church, will be coming forward and ask for the same consideration as well. So I just want that being said, so the public understands that we know what decisions that we're making, and we know what we've done in the past. Councilor Beyondich.
And I acknowledge we did that in the past, but in light of what has come forward. But I will also say, if you don't ask, you don't know, you don't get. So I appreciate you still coming forward in light of what has happened. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Would you please read it? It was a motion to receive and file. Is that correct? Okay, is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is off topic, and I know Matt Reed left, but I had received a request, and Bill, I don't know if there's been any communication regarding a crosswalk across West Chestnut Street where school kids may be crossing on, is that 13th? Or 12th. So I don't know if we need to, if you guys have discussed that or if that has come up in your project, the scope of your project, but I'd like to be able to do what we need to do for crosswalk or child safety if some children will be walking or crossing for busing. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll probably look at it in the form of a motion once we vote on this other motion. So appreciate you bringing that up, and that's a subject matter we can do right after. So it has been moved and supported to receive and file. this request by the Holy Spirit Church. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Johnson?
Yes.
Aaron Sally? Yes. Huffy?
No.
Motley?
Yes.
Friedlieb? Paulson?
Aye.
Beyondich?
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you, Mr. Hofstad, for coming in.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Next item, Britt?
Did Counselor Ponson want to make a motion about the crosswalks?
Okay, I'm sorry. 70 years old, and I'm starting to lose my composure a little bit, so, no, please, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd like to just follow up with maybe the motion would be to direct city staff to work with the Marquette Catholic School regarding any crosswalks or safety issues for crossing the streets for children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Counselor Paulson. Is there support by Counselor Motley? Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 is from the Parks and Recreation Department, and the first one is discuss approve the proposed rental rate increases for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brian Silber, our Park Rec Director, and Mr. Jim Hunt, our Operations Manager for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. Welcome.
Good morning, Council. Back in January, the Park and Rec Commission had requested that staff take a look at our rental rates for not only the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, but also for our park buildings. We are operating under our original rental rates at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center that were set back in early 2021 before our building opened. And our park and recreation buildings are operating under the same rental rates that were approved back in 2019 and went into place in 2020. So the Park and Recreation Commission asked staff to review those and bring to them a report and recommendations for their August meeting, which we did. They reluctantly have moved forward both of the or all of the rental rate adjustments that we are proposing to you today. Since we are starting with the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, I will turn it over to Jim Hunt.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Hunt, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. So on these attachments, we can see we've broken it down on the pricing proposal. We can see what our pricing is currently, what it has been since we've opened, which has been the same, and what we're proposing the changes in that following column with a percentage reflected in the last column of that document. It equals out to about a 21% increase in room rental, ice fees, and ancillary rental charges.
Okay, thank you. So just for the public's edification, I know this information is available. Could you just, for the sake of discussion, just give us one example of a 21% increase on a specific room rental?
Yes, it starts off with the first one, the entire ballroom. Currently, we rent the entire ballroom, all 4 sections, for $1,400 per day. We're proposing to bring that up 21% to $1,700 per day. Arena is particularly of interest in that we currently charge our rate of $750 per day. We're proposing to bring that up to $1,500 per day because of the value and the offerings that are within that arena. For the way we do see people use that arena, we're unable to, it's very difficult for us to get to a net sum zero with some of those rentals in the arena.
And so that particular example you just gave us is more than a 21% increase?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. So you're making some relatively increases based upon demand, based upon opportunity, based upon what the future revenue stream is going to be, and being cognizant of the financial performance moving forward and all those other considerations that you and your staff has made. So thank you for those examples. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for all the research you've done on this and providing the backup information from Fortune Bay, from Giants Ridge, which are within the market. They're the closest competitors that we can actually compare, but we're still not comparing. We're not comparing rooms to rooms because of the type of venue, because of the other amenities, that kind of stuff. I appreciate the ability to look at this and really see what's going on. I think that what you're doing is trying to help also with the revenue and the revenue stream at the building, and I appreciate that. So as a recommendation from Parks and Rec, and we definitely do need to look at these rates, I will move the rate changes forward to the council meeting for approval.
Councilor Johnson makes a motion to approve, bring forward to the council meeting the proposed rental rates increases for the Arlington Memorial Event Center. Is there support? Support. By Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? I'm sorry. I didn't see the light come on.
It's okay.
I apologize. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. When we talk about the room rental, that's just for the bare room. There's nothing in there. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the top item of the, there's kind of a couple different ways we are priced on that. If it's an arena event, we charge for tables and chairs per each one. When a client rents the ballroom, tables and chairs and the setup of those tables and chairs is included.
Because I've had conversations with, obviously, people who have looked at our facility and gone elsewhere. And cost is such a big thing for them, and I've tried to contain this. Are they able to rent, for example, rent the ballroom and rent the tables and chairs, but they do all the setup and tear down?
We do not have that as a business model option, no.
Would that be something that would be entertained?
Certainly.
The only reason I ask is because I'll use the curling club, for example. They rent the curling club, they have so many tables, so many chairs for X amount of dollars. There's no staff. The family goes in, they set up, they decorate, they do what they want. When the event is done, they tear down, they put all the chairs and tables back. And I think that's where people, from what I've talked to, have found to be more to their liking, because it does help cut down on that cost. So they are able to rent the building, they are able to rent the tables and chairs, but there's no staff. They do everything. And to them, it's worth their time. I mean, they're still paying for the equipment. It's just the staff, they don't have staff. The families are willing to do the work themselves. And I wondered if that was an option, if that's something we could bring into this conversation with these rentals. And it's just a thought.
As I think through that question or idea, the first thing that a guest will do is tell us how many guests they want. We will develop a actually it can be three-dimensional mapping of exactly how that layout is going to be so they can get an idea. We can properly set that up for them. We set up trash cans, we remove trash. We go back into our closed area behind the house where we're housing sodas, candies, different things along those lines, where we house all of that material. They're going to be in and out of that back of house. I am not overly comfortable with that idea. The liability of taking a pile of 8 chairs on a cart, it's a real liability on us, let alone a person who has never done it before. Not overly comfortable, but we can make it work. I can also foresee that they won't clean that facility to the proper standard, that we would clean it for that next client tomorrow or later in the week. So we're going to get to come in and do some mop-up additionally, re-straighten the hallway where we stock all those items as well. So there would be a little labor, but we can do it.
And I know my family has rented the Mountain Iron Community Center for family events. And they just pull the tables out of that room. We do the setup. We just put everything back, we clean. And I'm just trying to think of different options that, I know when I've had conversations with potential brides, they look at the price and they're like, we can do it better. Or not better, we can do it less expensive. So I'm starting to think, do we back off a little bit where we give them an opportunity to do the work and save themselves money and save staff time? So I'm just trying to think outside the box a little bit on some of the rentals. And on the boardrooms, they are booked and they are rented, so I mean, they're not just used. Everybody who uses that room pays the rental fee.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. It has been moved and supported to move for discussion and a vote to the next council meeting, the proposed rental rate increases for the Iron Terre Motors Event Center. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll support this, but I really like where Councilor Beyondich is going. And I'm wondering if maybe we could get some information. Do you think we could get some information what that might look like by Tuesday? Does that put too much pressure on you?
We'll find a way, yes.
If-
We have
if
a
that's
week, yeah, a week, yes, we
Because
can
that might
put
be a
that
nice,
together.
that might be a nice option for those that maybe want to save some money and also even with our staff time budgetary wise. So I like where you're going with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And included in that would be, what it's going to cost for liability, because if we let private people do that, they're going to have the insurance liability. You can't give them permission to set up their own things, and then we carry their liability insurance in case they get hurt. So there's going to be an additional cost for liability if that's allowed to. So all those things, if you could come up with some ideas for the council moving forward. But we are moving this rental rate, of course, the motion is to move this rental rate forward with some additional information to follow for the next council meeting as requested by Councilor Paulson and Councilor Beyondich. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Mayor. And I wouldn't be supportive of having the general public doing stuff in our ballroom. I think that, as you mentioned, Councilor Beyondich, there are options for people who want to do that themselves. I think that we have set a standard in the building of excellent guest service, and that comes with us doing the work. When people are paying for what they want, utilizing the ability to go somewhere else is all part of the idea of why we built the building. Our building serves a certain population, but we also we're also serving folks that are looking for a certain standard, and I think that is great. I'd be very curious to know how much actual staff time we would be saving by still moving things into the room, and then what that looks like for our staff who are there during the event to make sure all the needs and wants are met. I can see there being a challenge with a family setting up the tables and the bride being very unhappy with it, and then where does that fall? I see the complication. So I like that we provide everything. I'll be going to a wedding this weekend there. The bride is extremely ecstatic that she doesn't have to worry about anything when it comes to the building that day. So I still think the rates need to be adjusted as they are proposed, and I will be supporting this particular motion.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported to approve the proposed rental rate increases for the Iron Terre Motors Event Center and then bring it to the council meeting for final approval. Is there any additional comments? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you.
and then we'll go to Brian Silber.
Sorry, thank you. Do you, off the top of your head, know how many weddings we've had in the building this year, or how many are left to come?
I do not know that number. I do not. We have, I think, 3 or 4 still coming in this 2023, but I do not know specific.
For the year, okay. All right, I'll check back with you on that. Thank
We
you.
can get, by next Tuesday, we can certainly provide that info.
Perfect.
Both sides, post and.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Brian?
One of the things that we brought to the council for consideration back in 2020 was the idea of putting together some packages. The council at that time did not want to do the package model. We wanted the all a la carte model. May I make the suggestion that for next Tuesday, we put together some packages that are all-inclusive, but also as we weigh the options of, is it in our best interest to do a budget package of, here are 20 tables and 100 chairs, have at it, that also be a package that we consider. So that, because we've discovered here in the past 2 years of operation, especially with our corporate clients, there's a lot of the same thing that our corporate clients are ordering for each of their meetings. So if we could put something together like that for a package, that would be very handy. Same thing on the other side of the building, putting together some ice package deals. Whereas some people are going, oh, your prices are so expensive. Do you know how much it would be for me to do a tournament here? Well, maybe we put together a tournament package or a buy 10 hours, your 11th hour is free type of deal for people. Would that be something that you, as the council, would like for next Tuesday?
Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. I do like that idea, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I'm just trying to think outside the box on how we can keep moving things forward. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion on the floor is to approve the proposed rental rate increases for the Ontario Memorial Events as presented, and then not part of the motion, but as a request by the council for you to bring back some additional information regarding personal setups and other package deals for next Tuesday's meeting, which will be discussed in conjunction with this motion moving forward. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Do we really need a motion for bring those packages forward to the next city council? We don't need one, so thank you. Mr. Silber?
Would like to answer Councilor Beyondich's question. Between now and the end of the year, we have 6 weddings scheduled, and we currently have 6 more weddings booked for 2024.
Yeah, thank you, O'Brien, for the quick research.
Well, that is due to the staff that is back in the office being diligent and timely in their responses.
Oh, thank you. So, thank you very much. We have voted on that. Any other additional comments or questions that you have with respect to that? You do have approval for the rate increase, and we look forward to some additional information at the next council meeting. Thank you, Mr. Silber. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Next item.
Next item is also Brian Silver. It's discuss, approve the proposed rental rate increases for the city park buildings.
So as I stated earlier, we have not had a rate increase since beginning of 2020. So just like the rate increase that we just talked about for the event center, which would go into effect for 2021, or sorry, for 2024, the Park and Recreation Commission has asked us to review our rates for our park buildings. and make recommendations for rate increases for them that would also go into effect for reservations that are made after January 1st, 2024. So we are looking at very modest rate increases. Most of our buildings, we are looking at between 8 and 13% increases. The only two buildings that we are looking at a larger increase than that, or two amenities, would be the greenhouse and the fountain. Currently, both of those buildings rent for $50 for the day, and we have heard on multiple occasions that we have undervalued both of those locations tremendously. So we're proposing a 50% increase for both of those buildings. That would bring them both up to $75 for the day, also putting them in line with most of our other park buildings that we have. The other recommendation that I had, that I took to Park and Rec Commission, is we have the Ridgewood Rink. That is the skating shack that is behind Super One South. It is used as a skating shack during the winter. That building has a kitchen, has indoor plumbing, and an indoor bathroom. But all summer, it sits up locked. It is my recommendation that we add this as a building that we are marketing for a park rental building. And since it is equivalent size to the Klein Cupoletti building, wanted to price it about the same that we have the Klein Cupoletti building. It's just not nearly as nice as the Klein Cupoletti building, and definitely does not have the view that the Klein Cupoletti building does. So we don't want to have it at the exact same rental rate. So it's a little bit lower, and we're proposing the rental rate at $100 for the day.
Thank you, Brian. Real quickly, no lights on right now. For me, I welcome this increase, not because of the budgetary, just a matter of course, for the quality and the experience and, the amenity that's provided. I think it's too low myself, but I'm going to support your recommendation. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And the rate increases, for me, is minimal. I rent a building every summer. But the Ridgewood Rink would be awesome if somebody wanted to have a dog party. Could they use
Especially-
the rink, the boarded up where the rink is, they could use that for dogs?
Especially if we are able to convert that to an official small dog park for next summer.
Thank you. I will move this forward.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor in a second. We don't have do we have a
I will
motion?
do the motion.
We have a motion by Councilor Beyondich to
support for discussion.
approve the proposed rental rates for park buildings. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I think it's the club room, the City Hall club room rental agreement. I just wanted to ask, so it's a $25 fee, and then it says deposit for all events, $25 will be refunded if terms and conditions are followed. So is it a $25 rental and a $25 deposit?
I have no idea. That falls under City Hall, not our parks. That's the next item on the
This is the
agenda.
next item
Oh,
on the
okay.
agenda.
I apologize.
And we'll get to the next
Okay.
item.
Thank
It'll
you.
be good. Can you hold it in abeyance until then? Thank you. All right, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion on this memo or this motion? Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. And Brian, I just want to thank you and specifically you for when you came in, you created a better way of tracking the rental of all these outbuildings. I know back in the day that was we just didn't have the right processes in place, so that since you came in, you created you utilized the program, and we're tracking the use of these buildings. We're actually getting paid for them being used. So I just want to thank you specifically for helping the Parks and Rec Department to be able to start capturing some of this revenue, and then also increasing the upkeep and the maintenance of the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. It has been moved and supported. the rental rate increases for the park building as proposed by Park and Rec. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Item number 5 on the agenda is approve the rental policy for the club room at City Hall.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson?
The only question and concern I have is number 5, sweep, mop, hard surfaces, and cleanup. We'll need to make sure that that equipment is available, because at this time, there's nothing down there to do that with.
Okay. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so if I could just get clarification, is it a $25 rental fee and then a $25 deposit, and you get the deposit back after? Okay, thank you.
Counselor Motley?
So in essence, anybody could get the room for free, as long as they clean it. Oh, did I misread that? So $25, then a $25. So $50, get back 25. Okay, thank you. I misunderstood that.
Yeah, I did too. I'll clarify things. Thank you very much for that. So looking for a motion to approve the rental policy for the club rooms at City Hall. The rental rate will be $50, $25 of that will be refunded provided they meet the requirements of the rental agreement. Moved by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there support? By Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. I know that, to be cognizant of everybody's time, do we need a break real quick? Does anyone need a break? Okay, let's move on. Thank you.
Item number 6, approve the grant between Minnesota DNR and Virginia Fire Department for life safety gear.
Okay, thank you. We have the fire chief and the assistant fire chief Frederickson, Assistant Fire Chief Jonason here to answer any questions we have.
Is there a match to this? There's a grant and then there's a match?
Assistant Chief Jonason and Fire Chief Frederickson, welcome.
Good morning. Yes, this is a 50-50 match, so the grant, so it would go to purchase $10,000 worth of wildland PPE, which we are seriously lacking. And the stuff that we do have is currently expiring this year, so DNR will kick in $5,000, City of Virginia pays $5,000, and members of the fire department get $10,000 worth of PPE.
So is this, was this anticipated and is it in your budget?
Yes, we currently have room in our budget.
Thank you.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there support? Support. By Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, firefighters, thank you, guys. Have a good day.
You too, thank you.
Item number 7 is approve the managed services agreement with Pantheon Computers for the city and police department.
I know Pantheon Computers has been providing this service for quite a while. They are certified by the state on CGIS, was the Criminal Justice Information Center, and the other requirements the state has for them to work on the computers. Are there any other entities that are out there that have the same qualifications? I know the last time we spoke, there was nobody else. Local, anyway.
Correct, nobody local.
Okay, very, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So the way I'm reading this is there's a total, it's kind of confusing. Total agreement invoice, $6,909.60, and that's per month. Software, storage fees, managed service, advanced security services fees. And then is there another $1,258 a month for the police department?
The city is $6,909.60, and then the police department's $1,258.
On top of that?
Yes, they're billed separately, so yes.
Okay. And then when we get the bills for data processing, is that Pantheon that's doing our data processing?
Correct.
And that's an hourly charge because our data processing is very high on our schedule of bills.
Yes, it's also Roger. So it depends on if it's a project or if it's something going on. So it's or the monthly services, I'd have to take a look at the detail.
Can we do a cap? Like how much we're willing to, I mean, some of those monthly bills, I think were over $12,000 on data processing.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look. So if it was a project, then it'd be also capital purchases of computers or Wi-Fi stuff, or there might be something in there. But I can take a look at that.
And then how long is this a 1-year contract?
It's a 1 year. We had told them originally when we first signed on with them that we'd only do 1-year contracts. So they've been extending that for 1 year each time.
I guess I'd like to explore putting on some sort of a limitation on that data processing dollar amount. Maybe if it's to exceed, I suppose we'd have to pick a number, but that it would have to get approval then if it's going to exceed that amount.
Like I said, it depends on what happens. I mean, I'll have to take a look at the detail, what month you're talking about, if there was a purchase in there or if there was a major catastrophe.
I can go back and look too and highlight it for you. But I guess I know in the past it had been, we were working with CompuDyne, and CompuDyne, I don't know if they still do what Pantheon does, but do you think that we should try to go out for quotes for professional services? Or is Pantheon truly the only entity that can do this?
CompuDyne has been bought out, and they are not BCA certified, so they cannot do the police department. They could do the city side, but they couldn't do the police department.
Roger is BCA certified.
Correct, so he can work in the PD.
So he could work in the police department?
Yes, but he doesn't do managed services.
Okay. I don't know, I feel like when I've seen some of the bills coming forward, I feel like our data processing is pretty expensive, and I don't know.
Because we don't have an IT person. If we had an IT person that could sit and do some of this stuff, we wouldn't have to use Pantheon or Roger to do a lot of it. We don't have an IT person, so we rely on the firms that we contract with to do that work.
And I understand that, so I guess I'd like to explore putting a cap on that, or having to get approval if it goes over a certain dollar amount. And I don't know if we can bring that back for discussion, maybe at our next committee of the whole meeting, to give you maybe some time.
Yeah, let me take a look at the last 12 months, what we've paid. And I can break it down if it was equipment or if there was emergency or what happened over the last few months, if that's okay.
Thank you, Brett, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. The concern that I have is the fact that the state of Minnesota places some mandates on the certification of personnel applying, having access to sensitive data, including the storage of body cam footage and all those kind of things. And it's an unfunded mandate. It's a mandate by the state of Minnesota that we comply. It's mandated by the state of Minnesota that we have a certified individual that's certified by the BCA, which is a significant cost. And then we have mandates for the mandatory equipment that has to be done to accommodate that. So all those being run, if it was outside the concept of where there wasn't an unfunded mandate with other city services, it would be something that we could take a look at. And I do believe that looking at having a certain cap and then approval on a case-by-case basis, but daily uploads and body camera footage and all those kind of things. You have a body camera. That's not just because you make you go on a call. That's on all the time. That data has to be stored for a long period of time, and that data storage is very expensive, which also is an unfunded mandate by the city of Minnesota. So that falls on all the local municipalities, counties, and the state law enforcement entities to comply. And so a small community like us makes it difficult for us to do so. So I welcome that information that's requested by Councilor Paulson. So we look forward to something, some explanation or some information at the next committee of the whole meeting. Thank you very much. But thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay. Is there some motion or anything? No. Okay. Do we need one? Okay. Well. Okay. It's in a managed service agreement with Pantheon for the city and police department. The request from finance is to approve this service agreement, but with the information that's being requested by Councilor Paulson and the rest of the council as well, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time which to approve the agreement until we come up with some kind of adjustment to the contract. But looking for a motion on the floor on finance number 7, approve the managed service agreement with Pantheon Commuters for the city and police department.
Can I ask, when does this agreement expire?
August 31st, 2024.
On what day?
August 31st, 2024.
August 31st, 2024 is when the agreement expires.
We're re-upping it now?
Yes. I just received it after the last council meeting, so we just got it. So it's a one-year contract.
We've got time then to explore options and.
And over the year, it's a one-year contract starting September of this year, going through the end of August of next year.
Starting now.
Starts now.
Right.
I find it cost excessive, to be honest with you, but I don't know enough about any of this to, that's just my opinion from
We're a very
my
large network.
uneducated head with
Yeah,
regard to this.
we are a very large network. Every city building has internet and also has access to data. So that data is stored somewhere, and then we have to back it up. And like Mayor said, there's all these requirements for things.
And there's no other vendor, though. I mean, it's just that, it's a monopoly of sorts. I mean, there's
Kind of. We were paying CompuDyne pretty similarly per month.
similarly.
But when the state mandated the certification of these access data in the state criminal files, CompuDyne did not decide to get certified, and this is the only certification the corporate company that we have right now is available to us. Is that correct, Britt?
At this moment, yes.
At this time, okay, thank you.
And I would move forward the agreement with Pantheon since it's our only option.
Well, Councilor Friedli moves to approve the management service agreement with Pantheon for the city and police department. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I quickly hopped on. I think this is a July bill run. And if we look, Pantheon has managed IT services charge labeled police for $7,963.99. And that's not including the other side for the rest of the city. So I guess before I would approve this, I would like some more information and to understand where those expenditures are coming from. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
I would also agree with Councilor Paulson. Also, just random, if we actually, which I don't know if we are or not, approving another city position, which would be IT, would we be hypothetically, if that position moved forward, are we now paying this service and also the new IT person, so then it's even more money, and we're stuck in a contract with Pantheon?
And remember, Pantheon is our managed IT services, so everything you have on your computers is stored in the cloud, all of us. And so they are holding all that in a system. So a single IT person doesn't have that system to hold all that information and the antivirus and the backup and everything. So yes, unless we were to go purchase our own server and create our own cloud system here, we'd have to pay Pantheon to do that.
Okay. But is there a way we can try to cut, like I don't understand this either, kind of like Councilor Friedli said with how this works, but I struggle with the idea of putting in another IT person if we're going to be.
And that was the point of the IT person, was to try to start cutting some of that cost. It probably would not happen in this year. That would take some time for capital and for other things. Servers cost anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 for one we would need, the size we would need, and we would need one at every single building. So there's a large cost we'd have to do if we go into that, but I need that expert to tell us what they think we should be doing. Otherwise, I'm at the mercy of contractors that aren't employees with the city.
So, and I know I'm kind of sort of off topic, but so if down the road, if the council chooses to put in this IT person, or if we do, like, will we be saving money in the future?
Correct. That would be the hope and the intent, is that we would not have to contract out everything anymore. We would have somebody.
Okay, thank you, Britt. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Aaron Sally? Yes. Huffy?
No.
Motley?
No.
Friedlieb?
No.
Paulson? No.
Beyondich? Johnson?
Yes.
Motion fails 5-2. Thank you. So I would suggest that we have something prepared, looking at some adjustments to the contract with a little bit more information about.
Mayor, if I may get more information about that detail, the staff is telling me that that was not for managed services. So let me get that information, what that purchase order really was, and I'll get back to the council next Tuesday.
I apologize. Could you repeat that, please?
Let me get back to the council next Tuesday with some detail, because that invoice, that the $7,963.99, looks like it might have been coded wrong. It was actually for equipment, not for managed services. So let me get some more detail for the last year, and I'll come back to the council next Tuesday.
Looking for a motion for staff to bring forward the next council meeting some clarification and adjustments with respect to this contract for Patheon Computers. Moved by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8 is review and approve quote from Jarek and Associates for city lobbyist services.
And has that changed over last year's contract?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. I know that there's a group that's out there with respect to the 2024 budget, and we're all, have to be cognizant of that. But I must say that in this particular case, I would support, particularly that the rate hasn't changed since they started this thing. But they've been very successful in helping us lobby for different things, money from the legislature for a variety of things. And we have two major items coming up. One, our priority was to lobby for some upgrades for the city hall. And Britt and I and Matt Reed and staff met and testified at the Senate committee, bonding committee tour, and we'll be probably doing the same for the House tour, which is later on in the month or maybe in October for that particular reason. And the other is our ambulance service. There's been some renewed discussion at the state level as well through about ambulance service, rural ambulance service, and how that goes. And in some discussion previously, prior to, in this past summer, talking with the lobbyists and the introduction to some legislators, there's an effort underway to try to put together some kind of a package for this legislature to consider with respect to ambulance service, rural ambulance services. Us being one of the higher priorities because we provide ALS service as opposed to BLS service, which is we have life support with drugs on board. We do more than just the airway breathing circulation. So without that being said, they can help us gravitate with the other legislators through that process. We have a couple legislators up here, one that has some experience in that regard and is part of the bonding committee down there in the tax committee, and that's where we would have to focus our focuses on a taxing district. So all that being considered, I think we have some issues that our lobbyists can continue to help, and I think it's a worthwhile investment in that regard. So that's all I'm going to say. Looking for other council information and input. Thank you.
Have we, excuse me, Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Friedlieb.
Have we ever sought any other bids or quotes from any additional lobbying groups such as the Costin Group, which is more local, to my knowledge?
Well, we did early on, but not since then. The lobbyist group, they hired Jarek and Associates. They have Ely connections, obviously, but they live in the metropolitan area. They only represent one city north of Minneapolis, and that's the city of Virginia. Other lobbying groups lobby on behalf of a lot of different cities here, so we're exclusive to we're the exclusive client for local municipalities from the Jarek and Associates Group. That's the difference between the two. Not to say we can't go out and look for some other things, but at $3,000 a month, looking at the other lobbyist firms, they're upwards of a lot higher than that. But we could take another look, sir. We certainly could do that.
Is there a possibility that somebody on staff might be able to bring to us, like, what the bang was for our buck? Like, what kinds of monies were availed to the city by way of the Jarek and Associates' involvement and networking that assisted the city? Just to give us a better idea as to if it is in fact cost-effective?
Yeah, and I think they have a copy of all the legislation that they brought forth and some of the contacts they made with respect to that. And we have, I think our finance department and staff can look at, some of the projects, monies that we receive from bonding and cash allocations that was a direct result of some of the lobbying efforts that was done by that group. We could certainly provide that to you, and maybe probably have that by next Tuesday.
And so, like Sherry, I mean, do you vouch for the Jarek Associates Group as our mayor does, given your knowledge of what they've availed to us?
Sherry?
Councilor Freely, yes. I'd have to say the biggest one was the Highway 53 and the GAP funding. That was a lot of lobbying, and we did get the money, so otherwise we would have been on the hook for it. Yes, I say they've done quite a lion's share, and they do send out their reports, so I can gather that together for you.
So that was like in excess of $5 million, was it not?
Yeah,
That they,
5.2.
right. So realistically, there is a pretty good bang for our buck for the
Yes.
investment of Jarek and Associates,
Well, it was-
historically.
Yeah, there was money for the public safety building from bonding that came through lobbying, money for the Ironton Moise Event Center that came through lobbying, the GAP funding of $2 million came through the lobbying firm, and the $5.2 million. All those were part of the lobbying efforts on the part, and having the opportunity to go down there, and it could be any lobbyist, I suppose, but to go down there and be kind of handheld like I was to each individual legislator, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, and sit down and be able to, make the introduction and say, this is our project, and help explain the project, take the information that we provide and distribute them, walk into each individual legislative office and provide that information. Say, look, we're representing the city of Virginia. This is what they're looking for. I brought the mayor here with me today. So all those things considered, I think that it has been worthwhile, and based upon their current contract without raising the fees, I don't see the need to go elsewhere, but we certainly could do that. Sherry?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think that the mayor and the city administrator and a few others have established a good relationship with Jarek and Associates, and also too, in my book, it's really important that your lobbyist concentrates on your city and isn't out looking for other cities when you need them.
And I guess, Mayor,
Yes, please, Councilor Freely.
we're in a position where we need to scrutinize anything that we're buying and paying for at this point in time, so that's why I'm bringing this up. Is there other options? But it appears to me that this has been a successful lobbying group on behalf of the city of Virginia, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson, and then we'll go over to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess I just wanted to make sure that the benefit that we're receiving from the work that they do outweighs the financial expense. So I don't know if I don't mean to make extra work, but just so that the general public, I think this is kind of a topic that a few people actually have brought up to me as, can the city actually afford that expenditure? So if we could maybe have something ready in our packet for the council meeting, that might just kind of help, people to feel more comfortable about why that this expenditure is justified. And I think that Jarek has done a great job. They email us, they let us know what's been going on. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we received an email regarding the whole SRO, the police department issue. So they're like right on top of those issues when they come, off the information line down in the metro. So I feel that there's a benefit, but I feel like we need to show the public that there is justification in the expenditure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson, then we'll go over to Councilor Motley. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be supporting this just because if we're tightening our belt, I'd rather put $36,000 to a part-time employee that's helping to have direct benefit to the city, and we take a year off and we come back next year. I've always been very skeptical of lobbyists in general. So I will not be supporting the $36,000 expenditure because of some of the things in the last month that we have not approved. That would have been a very direct benefit immediately to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Motley.
So would this be, Sherry, is this the group that we would need to push us to try to get us into a taxing district for our ambulance service?
It would be.
Okay. Are they aware how important this is for us going forward? I mean, is it addressed every year with them?
Well, we did address it at length last year, even though it wasn't a priority for the city moving forward, but working with Bud McAlpin, who's the EMS kind of coordinator down there that goes around and helps rural ambulance services move forward, works closely with the lobbying groups down there, and we're well aware of what we need. They have a copy of our 2002 Minnesota Department of Health study with respect to rural ambulance service and the crisis that was established there, and has actually made some inquiries and inroads and we have had some conversation with legislators about the need for that. And the legislators they agree that something has to be done, they just don't know how to do it. And so this would be something moving forward to taxing district. And if you're, just years ago, there was a state representative that was willing to put forward a taxing district legislation, which he did do. But the taxing district was on a voluntary basis, so that if we could have the taxing district, we could tax the people, but each individual township or city would have to agree to that in their own elected body. And so they chose not to because they get the free service and they don't have to pay for it. So I think yes, the short answer.
So when we go with this group, potentially, if the council agrees, do we list priorities for this lobbying firm going forward? Can we list that as a priority? Again, the taxing district?
Yes, we have listed, we have sent to the legislature in June, I think, what our top priority is. But that's a city priority. This would also be a city priority as well. And that sometimes comes from a different perspective, a different pot of money, a different kind of legislation, different committee. And so by going to the legislators who are chairs and sub-chairs and members of these committees, we would meet with each individual one of those people. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I respect your opinion, obviously, Councilor Johnson, in that regard, but I think that the $36,000, there's no benefits attached to it. It's a one-year contract. We can get out of it anytime we want. And as it seems as the exclusive representative of us, if we're going to have a lobbying firm, I think it's appropriate for us to do so. There's a lot of things we have to cut in our 2024 budget, but in my opinion, you can't cut your nose off to spite your face. If you're getting results from an investment that you're making, you don't want to cut that opportunity out, and then your investments are squandered. So that's just the way I look at it. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I just ask, what, in 2024, what is the state of the state? Is that a bonding year? Is it what kind of a session is 2024?
It's not a regular bonding session, but the legislature decides what's bonding and what's not. But the money that's allocated doesn't necessarily come from bonding. The money come from cash, direct cash payments through so the bond is they borrow the money and they pay off the bond and they give the money to the various projects. There's cash allocations as well, and we received that cash allocation of $2 million. So and that came as a part of that too. So it's not just for bonding; it's for lobbying for any cash or anything that we need as far as revenue to help us fulfill our obligations to the city citizens.
And then can you foresee if 2024 will be a time where they actually have cash that would be available to the city of Virginia? I'm trying to justify, because I understand what Councilor Johnson's saying 100%. So if there's a chance that it's just a year that they're not going to do anything, then I could foresee maybe holding on this for a second or for a year. But I guess I want to know
We don't know what the legislature is going to do. The legislature calls for a bonding bill, bonding session. It's up to the leaders of each party in which to do so, and in conjunction with the governor, if they're going to have a bonding bill or not. They think that because they didn't have one 3 years before, just had only an infrastructure bonding bill this last session, they anticipate they got to fill the gap with other local, local issues, school district, and mental health and housing. Those are some of the things that are coming up for next session. So, don't know. We won't know that until next year.
Thank you for that. So I guess I would move to, I'll support this, but I'd like maybe some more information, more information on, by Tuesday, to maybe approve this, just for further clarification for myself. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Paulson. So we all want to know more information. So the question is here, do we take a vote to move this forward to the city council meeting for a final vote with additional information to be provided to the council, or do we not move forward with the motion to move it to the city council meeting? So looking for that information or that action from the council. Okay, Councilor Freely votes to move the contract for Jarek and Associates Lobbying Group to the City Council, provided additional information is presented for consideration for a final vote. Is there support for that?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Paulson for further discussion, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we change our legislative priority or no? Can we?
There's two different paths here. We already set the bonding priority, which had to be in by May of this year. And bonding is separate from what were the legislative priorities. Legislative priorities would be like when we went down there for,
right.
When you go down for PFAS or for LGA, those are legislative priorities. We can definitely do a legislative priority for an ambulance district language.
That's, I think, where I'm going with
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yep.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported to move this contract forward, provided additional information is proffered at next Tuesday's meeting for consideration for a final vote. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Coffee,
Aye.
Motley,
Yes.
Ridley, Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich, Johnson,
No.
Baranzelli.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9 is appointment of a team leader for Public Works.
Okay, thank you. Is this recommended by staff?
Correct.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 10 is review the policy for the non-city use of city logo. I tried to incorporate all the discussion we had. It does look kind of messy, so I'm sorry, I should have put a clean copy in here. But it strictly limits it to city business only, by city staff for city business only, and then it does just dictate how city staff are to use that.
Councilor Paulson.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the single, the strikeouts on here, and I feel comfortable with this going forward, so I would move to approve.
Councilor Paulson moves to approve the non-city use of the city logo policy. We have it before us. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Motley for discussion.
Thank you
Further
to-
discussion, Councilor Motley.
Thank you to the city staff for this and Britt, and that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 11 is a request from the Department of Natural Resources Forestry Division for timber sale access, and this came from Jenny Bourbonnais, so I will turn it over to her.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Bourbonnais.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Yes, the request came in from the DNR Forestry Division, looking for an access route through city property to some timber that they are looking to put on for a sale. It's my understanding that they don't actually have a logger for that sale yet. They're just looking for options and routes. So there's nothing finalized, but they're kind of doing their due diligence to see if they can get that access through city property.
Okay, thank you.
harvest.
And you're recommending this? Thank you. Council?
I will move this forward to the council meeting.
Council Johnson moves to approve, bringing it forward to the council meeting for final adoption. Is there support?
Or for discussion.
Support by Council Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Council Freely.
And I probably missed it in the packet, but, and my computer's glitching anyhow, so I can't look at my packet, but, so like, just accessing this property through our property where?
So there is a map in the packet that shows the city property where they'd be accessing through, and it's existing trails and roads. There may be some work that would need to be done to widen those, but there would be no new roads, to my understanding, requested.
You know where our sludge disposal site is, up by the landfill, the sludge disposal site? It's past that. Past that, more into the wooded area. It's very remote, very far out there.
Sabi Trail or what?
I believe they're coming off of county landfill roads?
Correct, yes.
Oh,
They're also working with the
It's up there
county.
by the landfill road, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 12 is review the city financial reports for the month of August.
Thank you. And I'm going to have to step out for a moment. Councilor Paulson, would you take over? Thank you.
So how, Britt, would you like to go department by department?
Whatever the council would prefer.
I guess maybe I'll just, let me just open it up for any questions or direction as to how the council wants to begin. Councilor Beyondich.
I would like to go through this department by department, if we could, please.
Okay. I guess, Britt or Sherry, do you want to, should we just start on page
58.
58?
Counselor Paulson?
Sherry, go
Council.
ahead. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
couldn't see your
Just
light.
let me know what you would like me to explain, but I'll go through. The first one is the mayor's office. And what we're looking at is there's several columns there. You'll see the prior year, 222 is your first column. So you can look at the past year and see how we can compare. The next column is your current August actual. And then the current year to date is the third column. And that really is the column that is critical, because the next column over is the actual budget year. And you can compare those two columns to see how you're doing with your budget. Down on the bottom, you will see that obviously there is no revenue for these general fund. So it's all expense, but we want to look at the expense compared to what we actually budgeted. And let's see, August is going to be a little more than 50% of the way, so I think it's around 61% through the year. And as you can see, overall, the mayor's office is at 50.8%, so he's under budget. Thanks. Oh, it's working now. All right, you just bear with me. I've got my problems here. The next one, moving on. Oh, first of all, was there any questions on that? Okay, next one is council.
I have a question, Sherry.
Sure.
Sorry. I didn't know if anyone else wanted to speak. So when we're looking at the 2022 prior year actual, and then what we have in the 2023 budget, there is an increase of almost $6,000 there. And I know we're moving on to the city council, but there is almost a $10,000 increase. Does that include special meetings that are being budgeted for, or because we've kept the same rate of pay, both mayor and council, is that correct?
So far, correct, yes, for the last few years.
So should the current budget 2023 equal the 2022 actual?
No, because what's increased is your health insurance on there.
Those are the health
Yeah.
insurance increases.
Increases, and if that's what line item you're looking at, you'll see the difference. Line item object code 131, medical insurance, you'll see that it actually increased.
But it's and it's reflected in this actual salary, the line of
Oh,
salaries.
you're looking at salaries?
Right.
Yeah, that would include any special meetings.
Okay, so I know we're not at our budget meeting yet, but I'm trying to understand how we could cut. And so when I'm looking at a $6,000 increase, sorry, Mayor, we're picking on the mayors,
No, I'm with you.
picking on that, but then we're moving forward to the
I don't
council.
spend any money.
It's a $10,000 increase for the entire council from 22 to 23. So I'm just curious as to, we did not increase our pay. How come that number has jumped up?
So when she does the budget, she looks at the timeframe, right at the beginning of July, end of June, to see where you were 6 months. And then she doubles that, because our budget's done in August. So then when she's working on 24 budget, she takes June, July, she looks what you guys have so far for the first 6 months, doubles that and puts that into 24.
So then we won't know the actual till the end of 2023.
Correct. You may not spend all that whole increase, but she was just planning prudently on what was
Okay.
spent so far.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it.
That's okay, I was explaining over here too, so.
Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I know several years back, I questioned the miscellaneous column. And we have miscellaneous in several of these departments. Could you tell me what makes up miscellaneous?
Sherry?
Hopefully, very little makes up miscellaneous, but off the top of my head, I could not tell you without going through the detailed ledger. Technically, miscellaneous should be very limited.
It should be things that you purchase one time, you'll probably never purchase again in your life, kind of a thing. Just odd things that come up throughout the year that you may need that you just never expected or plan to do ever again.
Because, if I can step in, because there's enough object codes there that we should be able to code properly, okay? And we are working on that going forward with the new clerk, the accounts payable.
Thank you. And I agree, if everything can be put into that category, if not, on that miscellaneous in our paperwork, could it be explained what was spent in that miscellaneous column, so things just don't go in there
Yep, and
that
was
we're
what-
not aware of?
That was a previous council directive, so they've been really good about putting descriptions in there of what it was spent. I'm trying to think of what a miscellaneous item would be, and I can't think of top of my head, of course, because we're in the middle of a meeting, but they're usually, like I said, just those one-off things that you don't normally purchase. Anything I can think of is usually a small equipment or a tool, but
Right, and I know previously, I brought this up several years ago on that miscellaneous, and a lot of that should fall into any of the categories in that department where it's costed to.
and I can't think of anything at the moment, but I'm trying to think recently, over the last few months, it's been maybe 4 months ago, we had something that wasn't necessarily a tool, it wasn't a supply, it wasn't a commodity, but it was something so it went into miscellaneous, because if it's not one of those things, then it just needs a spot, you know? that you put in.
Yeah, and I know when I've gone through this, several of the departments, we do have a miscellaneous slot, and I really would like to get away from miscellaneous, that it should be categorized somehow.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Yeah, the elected body or the general public should be able to take a look at the budget, take a look at the expenditures and say, what was that for? So instead of miscellaneous, say, it's miscellaneous, but it's explained. Purchase this, purchase that, purchase this, and then we categorize it. So anytime someone takes a look at the financials, you should be able to tell, you know, what that money was spent on. So thank you for that. Other discussion? Please continue, Sherry.
Okay, moving on to the council. You can see, it's based on the special meetings that we've held along with the regular monthly stipend. Then the medical insurance proposed going up. Miscellaneous for last year for the council was $760. Year-to-date so far is $760. So I'm going to check that out because it's exact dollar amount. So we've zeroed that out. So, like I said, anytime you want to know what's a certain object code, we need to do a detailed ledger. We can get you that report. Just realize it's several pages.
About that.
Next one, city attorney. These would include attorney fees, not only for Brian, our regular attorney that sits at our meetings, but also for our other contract services.
So when you're looking at the attorneys and other contract services, you have our city attorney, which we have under contract with Brian Lindsay being the designated representative from the law firm for to represent him, to represent our city. We have other attorneys, firms that we use for other things in respect to the city, right?
Right, and if we know specifically, like with the police and prosecution fees, those would go under the police department. You'll see that.
Yeah,
But a lot of times, we try to code it to the correct department. If we have personnel issues or employee issues, we try to, and that would be under other contract services or professional fees based on their code in their department.
So we have three things under attorneys. We have the city attorney that represents us on the civil matters and guides us in the city council meetings and other items and follows through on the directions we give Brian Lindsay and his staff to take care of, number one. The second one is the prosecution fees for petty misdemeanors, and in some cases, gross misdemeanors violation. We have an attorney firm under contract to prosecute those matters, and that's from the Colosimo Law Firm, and that's Mr. Mike Carney. And then we have the other civil litigation attorneys that we have for specialized litigation that we have to contract out for. So it'd be nice to have the breakdown of that so we know, and that's in there. So how much our city attorney fees are, how much our prosecutorial fees are, and how much our outside contract fees, and then a sign that also is, be nice to know, what our revenue is with respect to the prosecution. What do we get? Because when the prosecution moves forward, as an example, and they say individuals find $1,000 for whatever it is for DUI or something, and where do those fees go? Court costs, law library, all those kind of things. It'd be nice to know. Bottom line, after all is said and done, what is the city's cut of the fees associated that the prosecution to offset the cost of that expense? So, Sherry?
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So if we go on, I guess I just want to maybe clarify. So on the top column, we've got salaries. Whose salary is that?
If you're looking at the $21,482.
Yes.
That's year 222. We may have had an assistant in the attorney's office at the time. We do not know.
Okay. And then how we have this separated, so we have legal fees under the, let's look at the current budget year, 2023. Then we have contract services and other professional services. And where is Brian's contract? Is that under legal fees or is that under legal fees?
Yes, 304.
304.
And if you see down on the very bottom, we are at 54%. He is this, I shouldn't say he because it's not Brian.
Doing good.
We're under, so.
Correct. I'm just trying to understand how we're categorizing things.
Okay.
And then when we're looking at contract services, are those the prosecutorial attorneys that the mayor just explained?
No, that'll come under the police department.
Okay,
Which I
so
think
what
is
are
coming
what are the contract services that we have in the budget, current budget year, $30,000?
Should we have to get extra legal fees either through the League of Minnesota Cities or other attorneys on
So
for other?
if that's not expensed,
it goes back.
it goes back into the general fund. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing with other professional services. I'm not sure what that alludes to.
I would have to look that up. We've always had a line item in there before when we did have an on-site attorney, we had the law office, and there were certain fees and books and things that related to that.
And last year, it looks like there was that expenditure, so, but if there is no expenditure, it goes back into the
right.
general fund.
And if you want me to pull up the detailed ledger for last year, I can do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Anything more on attorneys? When we're later on down the agenda here, we're going to be setting a budget meeting to hopefully set a preliminary levy, either at that meeting or one prior to September the 30th. And part of the information that would probably be disseminated to be discussed at that meeting will be the information and the clarification, the clarity that we're asking for today. So we and everybody else who's attending this budget meeting can better understand the process and how it's working. So that will have information be coming forward. So anything more in the area of our attorney? Sherry?
Moving on to City Administrator's Department. As you can see, the first few are all the way down to Object Code 201, office supplies is where we start our expenses for the operating of that department. When you go down to 319, other professional services, that includes our auditor fees in there.
The other professional services includes our
3,
auditor.
Object Code 319.
That's our auditor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And once again, if we don't spend this, it stays in the budget, it stays in the general fund.
Goes back in the general fund or stays in the
Correct.
general fund. Carries over. Thank you.
Now, on this particular city administrator, we are a little over budget. We're at 67.4. And that could be a multiple of things. For one, we have, might have had part-time salaries or other salaries in there that are helping out, and then they,
And again, for the next budget meeting, or maybe have a breakdown of what those are. Counselor Paulson?
Mayor, I do have, so clarification, Sherry, on the other professional services, 319, I think. So we paid Walker, Drew, and Honey $67,000 for the audit.
so far.
So
There-
far.
And they've also helped, there's a single audit in there too.
Okay.
When our federal grants are over.
Then year prior, in 2022, there was a total of $80,000 expensed under that category, so I would assume that's also Walker, Drew, and Honey plus, okay. And then when I'm looking at the overtime, it's 104.
Correct.
Should there be overtime in the city administration columns?
I was gonna say that some of the salary for the, help me out here, Britt. The Gallups,
Yeah, the secretary, the administrative assistant is half mine, so half of her salary is in my salaries, and so she does get overtime because she is an AFSCME employee, so if she attends planning and zoning or meetings outside of work time. And then half of one of the accounting clerks is also under my budget, under city administration. So if they, for some reason, have overtime, they also would fall under this.
Okay, I kind of want to watch that.
Yeah, and half of, I think it's also half of the payroll person is under mine also. So, yeah, and it's on the last budget agenda. I did have it broken down how many staff are actually in that
Thank you.
department.
I remember that. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Anyone else? Once again, when we set the budget meeting, we'll be discussing this in detail and drilling down, as Counselor Paulson would say, we'll drill down to what we need to look at. So, anything else in that regard? Okay, next item, please, Sherry.
Sure. Moved on to the Finance Department, and I'm pleased to say I'm right on. But once again, I have 4 in my department, in this department, and 1 is a half-timer, because I share with Brett. And yes, there is some overtime. Yeah.
But
Audit time.
You're on.
And you're. When I say year end, we're talking about your W-2s and certain deadlines getting out to January 30th.
I have one question on
Sure.
that.
Yeah, yes, Counselor Paulson.
I apologize. Just again with the overtime, I'm looking at the prior year budget, or the prior year actual, excuse me, and then the current budget. Do we budget for that amount normally, and that,
Correct. I have 4,500 already budgeted for.
and you did that in like 22 as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I don't like overtime, and I know the girls know that. But some of it is beyond our control when it comes to the year end, the W-2s, the 1099s. Last year, this year, I should say, in '23, it was really rough because not only did we have OSHA reporting, but I also had pay equity. It was totally crazy. Now, I realize I don't get overtime, but I ask the ladies downstairs to help me out with some of these reports, and sometimes I pull them away from doing what they need to do. And so, yes, we do try to keep it to a minimum.
Thank you, Sherry.
Well, thank you, Counselor Paulson. Any other questions at this juncture? Okay, Sherry, that's it?
More questions?
Okay, well, I have a number of questions.
Okay.
But I'm going to reserve those questions for the next budget meeting. So I know that we've given you some, requested some information from you, some more clarity on the financial reports that we discussed here today, and look forward to having those discussions in detail at our next budget meeting. So thank you, Sherry, for that. Anybody else have any questions, comments with respect to the financial reports? Councilor Beyondich.
Would I be able to make a motion to remove miscellaneous from these reports and have them put in, or an explanation of what that is that's in miscellaneous, so it's clear?
Yes, the explanation you'll see for miscellaneous is on the bill runs every 2 weeks. On this report, it's just showed as miscellaneous. These codes come in, there's a standard counting practice that you do have to have something that's a catch-all for things that only happen once a time. And so you have already directed staff, and they've been very good about it. I'm watching the purchase orders about very clearly defining what is in there if they choose to use miscellaneous and for what reason. So on the bill run, when you see that, you should never see just a miscellaneous, you'll see an actual description of what's in there. And once we start looking at these monthly, it'll make a lot more sense because you'll be able to remember from the last 2 meetings what we saw, and it'll be a little bit better. We'll get a little bit more in tune.
Okay, and thank you for that, because when I look at the bill run, I don't necessarily know that's what's in this
Right.
miscellaneous, so I'm
Right.
looking for something
And
unusual.
it'll start making sense when we start seeing that $200 difference in miscellaneous from last month. I see on here now, I can remember it was on that bill run for Grandy's for something that we.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Britt. Councilor Beyondich. Any other questions on the financial reports up to this point, before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. I didn't know if we were going to keep going or not, but I had a conversation yesterday, had someone call me regarding the Tennis for All building, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find it in our packet here.
And I received the same call as well.
And so I'd like to address this regarding it appears to be that maybe we missed it. There is no contract with Rock Ridge for the facility use agreement. And I don't know if Brian, if you know that, but if we looked in I believe it's in this packet, Tennis for All.
And while you're reviewing that, Brian, thank you for staying in the audience, and could you clarify something with respect to that particular
It doesn't.
question from Councilor Paulson?
In 2022, it does not appear that we received any money from Rock Ridge for that facility. And then if that is expired, that means we still don't have one this year. So can we get one? And then maybe get the money collected if they haven't paid.
Thank you. Brian?
You are correct. Our facility use agreement for the Tennis for All building with the schools has expired. I will defer to Sherry on last year's payment, but I believe we did send them an invoice and had not received payment on that at this point. Council had directed me previously to begin negotiations with the school for a facility use agreement. I'm happy to say that myself and working with the Tennis for All board, we will be working together and meeting with Athletic Director Josh Lampa either on Thursday or Friday of this week for hammering out a facility use agreement for the Tennis for All building moving forward. As the council directed, it would be a 3-year agreement that we would put into place.
Thank you for that clarification. And then if the school has not paid for 2022, could we make sure that we communicate to Rock Ridge that that has been missed? And then just really quickly, where would I find that code number? Okay, it would be facilities lease, is that correct, Sherry?
Sorry.
It's hard.
I know,
The printing's really light.
isn't very good.
Yeah, so when I look at the facilities lease, in 2022, we did not collect, it says. Then in 2023, we have budgeted $9,600 that we will be collecting, but there is no current agreement in place, so I don't know if that $9,600 is reflected for 2023, or
if it was put under membership fees, and this is something I will ask.
membership fees should be down below. I went through this with the person that called me from the tennis board. She was very excellent to speak with, and they have some really good things coming forward, I think, to bring, and I think we should invite them to maybe one of our budget meetings, so when we get to that department, they can kind of share the exciting things that they are working with Brian on for that building. One of the other things, and I apologize, I'm segueing, but this is because I think when the mayor went through the bullet points of maybe different things that were on the table for budgetary cuts, was the sale of that building, and I think that's why I received the phone call that I did, because they wanted some clarification and then also some justification that the cash flow is actually happening. And when we did the resurfacing, we actually pulled out for 3 years in a row for that. I think it was $34,000. We budgeted for that. So I have one question that I'd like to pose here, and then I think I'd love to invite them to come and have a discussion. But interestingly, when we talk about the resurfacing of the outdoor courts versus the overall maybe profit and loss or capabilities of the indoor building, could we or should we break it out where the outdoor court is part of Park and Rec and the indoor court is specifically the enterprise fund of the Tennis for All? Is there a difference, because the general public plays on that outdoor court? So I'm just wondering if it would make sense to cost it differently, or I mean, maybe that wouldn't be good for Park and Rec, because it would always look like an expense, on that side. But I feel like the conversation that I had was regarding how dollars are allocated in their budget, and it's making it look like they're upside down when really, in fact, they might not be if we put the numbers where they need to go.
You make a very valid point. To back up your point, I would say playgrounds are the exact same way. Playgrounds, swing sets do not generate any revenue. They generate an expense in purchasing them, maintaining them, insuring them, but they're not revenue generating. So you could classify a outdoor tennis court that's open to the general public in the same way if you chose to.
So just a thought, I guess, as I was having the conversation that I had.
And I had exactly the same conversation with that board member who is a financial advisor and understands the ins and outs of budget and how that works. But the question I have about separating them out is this. So if Rock Ridge School has an agreement with the Tennis for All facility, that would be the agreement to only use the indoor courts and not the outdoor courts. So we'd have to figure all that out to separate out, to make sure if there's a payment made based on the contractual agreement that you come up with Rock Ridge School District number 2909, that is for use of the entire facility, so that would be inclusive. So, and that would be something that would be discussed with and partnered with, and through Park and Rec, and through you as the director, and through the Tennis for All board, could come up with some kind of a facilities use plan that would be amenable to all. That makes sense? So I think we could, and they've asked to come to the budget meeting and then make a presentation. If we're going to talk about the Tennis for All facility, get some information from them. And Brian, I think we don't have the directive as of yet. We may have that directive coming forward, but that, if they haven't paid for last year, we should send them a bill. You got to pay.
We have every month, yes.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to send them another one, right? So, all right, thank you. Thank you for that. Anything more, Councilor Paulson? Okay, thank you. Anything more? Councilor, okay, Sherry first, and then over to Councilor Beyond. Sherry.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yes, we did invoice them for last year, and yes, they did pay for the 21-22 school year. We have not invoiced them yet for this year, 22-23.
Maybe we should.
Can I ask a follow-up on that, Mayor?
Please do.
So that's that 22-23.
22-23 this year.
Okay, but 21-22 should have been paid and allocated in the 22 actual, and it's not.
And that is where I asked them, where did they code it? They put it in membership fees, it's very possible.
I think it was just paid in '23, like recently. We billed them on September 1st again. Because if they paid recent. It wasn't,
Can we find that out?
we definitely find that out, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich.
And I think when we talked about repaving the outdoor courts, that was a question I had. Is that part of Rock Ridge that they use? Is that a public court that if the public is out there using the court and there's something scheduled, do they get kicked off? So that's where I wanted to know what Rock Ridge has access to versus our public if it's an outdoor court.
Yes, and if that's the case, the facilities use agreement has to reflect that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is set date for special council meeting to set preliminary levy.
Okay, and this will be a special council meeting.
It's my suggestion we make it a special council meeting, so whatever decision we make on the levy, we can pass it that day. Or if and I also suggest that we set two dates. So if we have to continue from the first date, we can already have a meeting set for the second date.
And so we'll make sure that all staff is available for that meeting and all counselors are available so that when we do set the date, we can all be present and then, of course, it'll be open for the general public to attend as well. So you're suggesting next Monday?
Monday, we have a special assessment hearing at 5.
We have what?
Special assessment hearing at 5 for the final 2021 street
Yes,
improvement
and
project.
Monday at 5, yes, correct. So my understanding is there's some staff have a conflict on, Sherry?
Correct. I will not be here on the 25th, but you're more than welcome to
No,
carry on.
no, so the 25th is what day?
And it's Monday, the
Monday,
25th.
so,
And then
that's not going to work.
Friday, the 29th.
Well, we could have it, before the council meeting on Tuesday. It's a regularly scheduled meeting. We all know we have to, carve Tuesday out for our meeting, although it would be earlier in the afternoon or later in the afternoon. If Tuesday is amenable to everybody, I set it at a certain time. You have the council meeting at 5. I know that those of you who are working work during that period of time, so I don't know what your schedule's like, so I'll go to those who have schedules that are difficult to work around, and that would be Councilor Motley. Is a Tuesday work for you?
No, next week I actually do work straight Monday through Friday, so I'm available anytime after 5, which would be more like 5:30 to give me time to get from work to here. So if we could do a night meeting at like 5:30, any day next week would work for me.
Okay, thank you. I'm flying out Wednesday morning. I won't be back until Wednesday night for a personal matter. So I won't be available on Wednesday, so that's the only day that I can't be available, that I can't be here. So Thursday, I know it's an off day, and I know people have other obligations. So Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, and I want to remind the council that we are just setting a number to start with. The idea, one of my frustrations has been is we're trying to solve all these problems in this much time, and we literally have until the end of the year to come up with the solutions for the budgetary issues. We really just need to set the top number, whatever that number is. We set that, the meeting's over. It doesn't need to be a 4-hour meeting or a 2-hour meeting talking about how we're going to fix it. We get that number submitted to the state by the 30th, which we got information today that if we don't, we're going to have a 3% levy, and that's it. Too bad. Don't worry about it. So we need to get that first preliminary number, whatever it is, into the state, and then we have 3 months to come up with a good budget that's not rushed, that's not panicked, that has had input from all of our staff, from the citizens, from whoever else we're looking at. So I feel like if we could just get that number set, then we won't have to panic about it. It's just a number submitted to the state so they know what we won't go over. Then we have, I'll say it again, then we have 3 months to get a good budget that's going to be acceptable and it's going to keep the city where we want it to be. So I don't see us needing more than, honestly, a half hour to just get some numbers. The staff is going to present some budget numbers, set the top, and then work it down from there. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. And then I would suggest that we have the meeting scheduled for 5:30 next Tuesday, move the council meeting, have the council meeting follow immediately after that. Or can we do it all in one swoop, have a meeting, have the council meeting and set the levy at the regular scheduled council meeting? We could do that, can we not? That just makes sense.
I will move to put the levy on the regular council agenda
For next Tuesday?
for next Tuesday.
Thank you. And what specifically is that day? Is that the 26th? 26th? Okay, motion by Councilor Johnson to set the levy, have the levy meeting at the council meeting that's scheduled for 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, September 26th. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So just for clarification, are we going to have our budget information during this time and be able to have discussion during this time, during this meeting?
We will have general fund information ready, because this is, again, the general fund levy we have to work with. So that's what we've been focusing on, and then we can talk a little farther about the rest of the budget.
Okay, so back to my conversation with, when I kind of met with the two of you, are we removing the line item out of the general fund and we're just actually looking at the gap at this point? Is that what I mean,
As directed, we have a 20%, 15%, 12%, and 10% scenario.
very good. Okay, so that's what's going to come forward.
That's what's coming forward.
And then we can have our discussion based upon those scenarios, incorporate it with the council meeting that evening, and have the general public, if they want to give input at that time, can give input. Okay, very good, thank you.
Yes. Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 14 is review the golf course restaurant contract, which does come to, I believe, expiration in October.
So I'll just start the conversation, then open it up for everyone else. When the golf course closes, I think they're tentatively scheduled to close on the 15th of October, depending upon the weather, obviously. The golf course contract expires, what is it, October 1st?
Yeah, that's the date.
So October 1st. So, I'm up there golfing quite a bit. I usually eat lunch or dinner there 3 times a week. And found out last night that once the golf season ends, that restaurant's going to be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So for the rest of the winter. And looking at, what we are trying to provide, what kind of level of service to provide, I guess the question is, what do we want to do with this golf course contract? And I'm going to ask Brian right out, and not that we're doing any type of negotiations, but we have a contract. And in this contract are certain milestones that have to be met. And if those milestones are met and they meet the current lessee complies, then that triggers the articles in that agreement. But if this does not, we have an opportunity to make a determination to change the language in the contract, look for other options. Those are all on the table as we talk about this today. Thank you. All right, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My personal belief is that we do not renew this contract. I know there's an automatic renewal in it. However, there were at least a couple points throughout the year where either sales tax or property tax had not been paid on time, and that is a condition of non-renewal. I also think the other portion is that whoever's in there needs to be at least meeting the minimum of paying for the utilities in that building. Right now, the city, the taxpayers are subsidizing a private business in that space. I would want to make sure that that is rectified moving forward, and that the utilities, the upkeep, and some of those general things that any landlord would be recouping would be available in the next lease moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So we have an opportunity to make a motion here to direct staff and our attorney to take some type of action, whether it's to renegotiate the contract, whether it's to give notice to sever, and then move from there. So those are basically our 2 options. Is that correct?
Generally, yes.
Generally speaking, yes, thank you. Okay. Councilor Beyondich.
You, and I did not vote for the first contract, only because I know the fees did not even pay our utility bills up there. So I felt very strongly that this is a business, and anybody in business knows they have bills to pay. And when it doesn't even meet the basic requirement of a utility bill, I have an issue with that. So I think everybody knows where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. So it could make a motion, could be made at this meeting to bring forward for final approval to the council meeting next Tuesday is to direct staff to send a letter, just as an option, to send a letter with intent to sever the agreement and move for other options, other vendor opportunities over the course of the winter season. That's an option.
I would make that motion.
Okay, Councilor Motley, make the motion in your words, please.
But you said it so much better.
Okay. The motion would be to serve notice of the current lessors of the golf course restaurant, the Northern Divide, and give notice of intent to sever the lease agreement, and then we'll move further action later on upon seeking a new lessor for that facility.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Motley. And is there support for that? Is there support for that? Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and see, I'm sorry, yes, Pam. Well, we have to set the, so it has to be October 1, right?
Yeah, we'd give notice. Yeah.
We give notice and it's like 14 days or whatever? Okay, yeah, we'll exercise the language in the contract. Thank you. Thanks for that, Pam. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
Just going forward, if it ends up being them or whoever in the future, I would hope that the new contract would be to the taxpayers' benefit and we're not losing money each month. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be a negotiation process to ensure that we recover the costs associated with the lease. Thank you for that, Councilor Motley. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing one more, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know there seems to be an issue with cleaning supplies. And what I'd like to ask, and I don't mean to go back to our budget sheet and reflect on this, but it does state year-to-date actual that the city of Virginia has spent $5,754.68 cleaning supplies. And that is allocated, it's account 211 allocated to the restaurant. Is that in fact the case?
We do?
Yes,
Yes,
we
it
do.
is.
We do.
We do. Right now, we do.
But I mean, is that the
actual?
the current
year-to-date?
budget? We have a budget of $1,200. And we-
They brought forth some, when I say they, the current leases, brought forth some invoices that were a couple years old, and we paid them this year.
So I thought we had remedied that at the, upon negotiation of our other lease last year. Did we not remedy the cleaning supply issue?
Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. So when the lease was most recently renegotiated, we put a new system in place for taking care of that. What I understand is that there were some historic bills from the old system that were presented. And as we sit here today, I think there's still some additional old bills that they're attempting to collect.
And I see that that's kind of what's kind of been going on here, but I guess I'd like to understand, maybe if we could get copies of those bills, that would help me out tremendously. I'm sorry to make you do one more thing, but I want to understand because I know they're going to come back, their attorney will come back, and I want to have some information ready. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So the motion is to serve notice, the city intends to sever the lease with the current lessor and within the contract language, and we'll move forward with seeking a new lease agreement with all those considerations that we just discussed today. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And we did have a late addition to the agenda. Item number 15, approve the request to apply for and receive funds from the Virginia Community Foundation for new flags and an additional security camera at the Alcott Fountain.
Thank you. Mr. Silber, once again.
Yes, welcome back. Several months ago, former Park and Rec Commissioner and the fountain guy, Greg Gilness, brought to me an idea of applying for a grant through the Virginia Community Foundation for flags to add to the light poles that are there. The light poles already have flag poles on them. We've just never purchased the flags for them. These would be seasonal flags, and we could also design flags to represent the different things that go on in the park, such as Brewfest, Land of the Loon, music in the park, National Night Out. We could do a wide variety of things. I have met with Andy previously from Masabi Sign, who is able to produce these flags. In addition, W.A. Fisher and Andrews Camera are able to produce these banners for us. I believe our current city banners came from Andrews Camera that we have throughout town on the light poles. So we have several good local vendors that we could utilize for this project. But that's really the small portion of this grant project. We'd like to keep the grant to under a $5,000 grant. Adding the second security camera up at the fountain could push us over that $5,000 mark, but it is something that may be beneficial to us to have a second camera getting a different angle than the one camera that we have up there does, so that if we do need to follow up on any vandalism or any incidences that have occurred up there, our police department would have access to that camera to follow up on those things. So Roy, at this point, I'm just looking for the council's permission to apply for or to seek funds, applying for those funds, and if awarded them, accept them through the Virginia Community Foundation for this project.
Move to approve by Councilor Freely, but is there support? By Councilor Motley. Further discussion quickly. If it's an American flag, you don't have to bear that expense. We have an organization that will donate the American flag for any city need. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, is this a matching grant 50/50 then? So the city would have to put in the additional or 2,500 to get to 5,000?
I'm going to defer to Councilor Beyondich for clarification, but I believe this is a 100% grant.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich, who has an inside scoop on that. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. I don't like to talk about it very often, as I work there, but there is not a match for that. So it would be a full.
Fully 100% funded. Thank you, Councilor Beyondich, the Virginia Foundation, Brian, and Councilor Paulson for that question. So has it been moved and supported? Is there any further discussion? Hearing, Councilor Beyondich.
As long as I'm up here.
Yeah.
So I believe on the grant, when you fill out the application, they will be asking if you have sought out other sources for funding. So it is helpful to put that on if you are going out for other funding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. There are no other items of concern on the agenda for today. Britt, do you have any late add-ons?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I made a motion the last time I addressed this, but the parking issue at Alcott Park, that was, their
You
headlights
did.
are pointed.
You
Did we
did.
make a motion on that?
No. I think we were,
Or if I just brought it up,
I don't
remember.
remember.
I'm sorry.
well, I've been up there every night because I know the individuals that's concerned. And I didn't go last night, but for 2 weeks straight, I went up there and sat there. Not that I have better things to do. And there was no issue at all. None. So I don't know when it's occurring, but
2 days ago in the
yeah.
evening.
Well, I was there 2 days
drove
ago
by.
from dawn until night for a couple hours. I had my dog there and not a car, nothing. Nothing. So,
So I
no,
guess,
there was a motion made?
I don't,
Could you check back?
I don't
Councilor Paul, beyond it, could you have some information?
Thank you. No, but I remember asking at that meeting, is the gate locked to the park at curfew time? And it should be, you replied that it was locked at curfew time? It should be?
Should be, yep.
Okay.
Well, we have Brian here. Brian?
And did that individual call the police like we suggested for the police to come up and take a look? I don't know. The police would have a record of that if in fact it did occur, and if in fact he did call. Brian?
If we're talking about what I think we're talking about, it is the gate over by the Historical Society, and that gate is closed and locked at all times. It has a padlock on it. The only time we open it is for during snow removal in the winter.
I think it's just a parking issue where the park and the lights are reflecting from the opposite way when we made the change. And those lights, if somebody stops and parks there, the lights, the little headlight, and it directly reflects into this resident's living room. Is that correct, Councilor Paulson?
That is correct, and I think what Counselor Beyondich is asking, do the park gates get locked at 10 PM when the park closes?
No, we do not close gates or lock the gates to the park itself.
And I think that's part of the problem when.
I believe the resident that has the problem is having not necessarily with traffic in the park. His issue is with somebody that is parking in the historical buildings parking lot and shining their lights across the street into his living room and bedroom.
It's actually right off of if you come into Alcott and you go around, it's right just past the historic building. You can just kind of pull your car in, and there's just a little, I mean, I can show you exactly, and people are parked there, and their lights are on, and their beams are flashing right into his living room. So I guess I thought I had made a motion, but maybe I didn't. I know I had stated the gentleman's address, and now I can't remember it. But I would like to maybe then make a motion to direct city staff to come up with a plan, maybe just stating, they're right across, you know where the handicap swing is, Brian?
Yes.
The blue, it's right across, basically right across there. So I don't want to prohibit people if they're actually going to, it's right there for handicap accessibility. But it's the headlights, it's not necessarily the parking issue. It's they're leaving their car running, their lights are on, and their beams are flashing into his living room. And I think when Councilor Beyondich had asked that question, we were assuming that the gates were locked at 10 PM, but they're not locked. So that therefore at 2 in the morning, he's seeing cars go in there, parked. They might be throwing some bottles out in the evening or what have you, that he's finding in the morning when he goes for his walk. So I would want to and then it's the neighbor next door to him too. So I was trying to figure out how we could alleviate that, either maybe with no parking or no parking with your headlights on, or just something that would kind of create a little bit of a barrier from that happening and the headlights being pointed directly at his home. And I had talked to a physician who lives right across the street on the opposite side, and she said, interestingly enough, when people are parked at the Essentia emergency room parking lot and they just sit up there, she said sometimes cars just sit up there, their beams come all the way down from the hill into her living room window. So I can see the effect that would have and kind of annoyance. So I guess I'd like to make a motion to direct city staff to formulate a plan to help the potential problem that we have going on with the headlights.
And you can make that motion, and then if you made it, if we find that you already made the motion, then that motion will stand.
Perfect.
Okay, so
Thank
the
you, Mayor.
motion is, and there's your support for that motion by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson?
No, I feel like we already closed the park, officially closed, it's posted. If these people are noticing people in the park at night, they need to call 911 and have the police come in, because it's going to do more. I feel like this isn't just about the lights. If someone's utilizing the park after hours, we need to fix that problem more than where somebody's headlights are. I'll just put this after being on the ride-alongs, if we are locking the gates to the park at night and someone is in the park, the police have to take the time to unlock the gates to be able to go investigate. Having the gates open allows for them to be immediately and expediently going in and checking on what's going on in the park. So I will not be supportive of actually locking the gates because it really hinders the police's ability to patrol the park and to utilize their legal rights to ask the people, the park's closed at 11, whatever time it is, why are you here? What can we help you with? How can we, otherwise you need to move along. So I think that's where we need to have, these residents need to start calling while the problem's happening instead of trying to solve a different problem. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Jones. So the motion was to direct staff to try to find a solution to mitigate. So, and we'll come back with those solutions. So thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Any other items of concern to come before the council today? Seeing and hearing none, we will stand adjourned at 11:45 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We stand adjourned.